Welcome, everyone. I'm Celeste Goyer, Executive Director of Smart Share Housing Solutions.
And I'm Ann Wyatt, Director of ADU's SLOW program of Smart Share. And we are pleased to introduce Eric Berg Johansson and thank him for joining us here. And Eric is a San Luis Obispo realtor, a planner, a fellow Masters of City and Regional Planning at Cal Poly, a former engineering project manager. Eric has a variety of experience, giving him multiple angles to consider our topic here today, calculating the dollar value benefits to property owners of ADUs. Eric, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep. It's important to note that ADUs bring a variety of benefits to property owners beyond dollars. So I want to point that out here as we get going. We'll be talking more about those other benefits in other videos that we do, but we're going to focus on the dollar benefits here today, a very narrow topic of benefit since we have Eric's expertise in that realm. Eric, what are the ways we may go about calculating the dollar benefits and quantifying these that ADUs bring to property owners?
I think there's sort of two big pieces to that. And so you have when homeowners are thinking about doing an ADU, their first thought is, okay, they have a new monthly income coming in. So if you think about a home, an average home, single family in San Luis Obispo is in the, $800,000 range. If you have 20% down on a mortgage, you could be looking at a payment every month of about $3,500 a month. So if you have an ADU and that is generating, let's say $1,500 a month, then you could potentially be paying, 40% of your mortgage with some income coming in. So I think that's the long-term ongoing benefit that we can see with ADUs. And then of course there's the value. So when someone adds an ADU, they're thinking, okay, how much value is that going to add when I go to resell my home in 5 years? And I think that's the trickier question. There are definitely a lot of opinions out there that are different about how to calculate that. I don't think there's any sure, true way to do that because it really is dependent on the neighborhood you're in, the size of the home, the size of the lot, the market. Are rentals right now easy to rent out, or is it hard to find a tenant? Right now, it's very easy to rent out a home. So that potentially an ADU could add more value to a homeowner. One thing I read online from an appraiser was the way that they've looked at ADUs is if you think about the average price per square foot for a single family home in San Luis Obispo, over the last 12 months, we've seen that that's about $525 a square foot. The appraiser that I read this article about said they'll generally take half of that price per square foot and apply that to the square footage of an ADU. So let's just use 500 to make it easy. So half of that would be $250 a square foot. If you apply that to, let's say, a 500 square foot ADU, you would get about $125,000 of added value. So I think that's, 100,000, 125, maybe 150. I think that's what a lot of people will throw around. But again, it's really dependent on the neighborhood. Is it downtown? Is it on the outskirts of town? What's the quality of the ADU? There's just so many factors that go into it. So it really has to be looked at a case by case basis. But I think that's sort of a general thought process around that.
Okay, and then Eric, something else that you've mentioned that you've seen in sales trends is that maybe at a certain point, houses over some value, higher end values, aren't necessarily benefiting too much or selling for more with the ADUs. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think looking in the $600,000 to $800,000 range in San Luis Obispo, just for example, a lot of cases there are people that are working full time, who have a set salary, who are really going to benefit from somebody else, supplementing their mortgage payment. When you get into the $1.2, $1.5 million $2 million range, you start to see more cases where an ADU is not necessarily used for income generation, but it might just be used as a home office, a place for guests to stay, maybe a place for their family to come visit for a month. And so when you get to that point, you don't see it, adding as much value exponentially as in the lower price points. And then, of course, in those really high price ranges too, you have buyers who, if they did want ADU, they could just potentially build one and pay cash. So it may not be as much of a factor in the value of the house.
Thank you. That's important to distinguish. As an affordable housing agency, SmartShare is particularly interested in affordable housing and how it can work. So it's an important point that the added value for affordable housing, adding ADUs to the higher end homes, may not help our goals for affordable housing any. So let's talk. Oh, go ahead. Any more to add there?
I don't think so. I think you're right. I think when you get into those higher price points again, the buyers may not be relying on that income to purchase that home and make that home work for them financially. So I think there's a less chance that that home is going to be rented out to a third party, someone that they don't know, as an affordable living situation.
Right, got it. Thank you. And so let's talk a little more on the sort of use value of the ADU. Assuming we're looking at homeowners then in the lower and middle sort of income categories and median and under home ranges, of how the use value of the ADU and that income can help these homeowners. Mm-hmm. And so we've got a rough calculation we can kind of look at of how that might work over time, how that rental income can help these homeowners. But is there a type of homeowner or two, before we go over that in particular the ADU income may help, or having an ADU that you could pinpoint or target?
Yeah, I think first of all, if you can find a family or something that has enough space on their lot, obviously, that they could still have an ADU and maintain privacy for their primary residence. I think that's a big factor. And then just somebody that, is on that brink of being able to afford a home, that, pushing it, the way that can get pushed over the line there is having that income from an ADU to meet those mortgage payments. So I don't know if there's a particular profile of a buyer that, wants an ADU or needs an ADU. I think it's pretty spread out.
Thanks.
I'd like to point out that it's possible we have homeowners in SLO County whose homes have a lot of value looked at with their current market value of the home, but that person doesn't intend to sell the home. They're maybe aging in place, or they're going to stay. So its value is really on paper, and they may still have a mortgage and other expenses that an ADU income could help out a lot for them. So not everyone who owns a high value home has a high income.
Good point. Exactly. And that's where we'll talk more about these kind of outside financial kind of benefits and calculation. Because here we're talking about just sort of the simple dollars calculation, and that doesn't do it the benefits justice. But exactly right, as Celeste points out here, and we have benefits both in that kind of sale value, should someone sell, how much they've increased their property value. But let's look at that use value, assuming then the person is going to, homeowner, stay in the house and get some benefit from the rental income over time. We've put up just a very simple low-end garage conversion example here that may be useful just to spend a moment on, looking at how this could work. If we can do some low-end garage conversions at an assumption here of kind of best case scenario, maybe of $50,000 for a simple garage conversion with an average 2-car garage, we could do some simple numbers then, assuming someone got a loan payment for a loan for the full amount, $50,000 at 4% paying back over 20 years. The loan payment could be just over $300 a month. And then there are a few other added expenses a property owner would need to pay for this unit. Utilities that we might estimate it up to $150 a month, and some extra property taxes, which would vary depending on the assessment, but might be guesstimated at an added $50 a month. So the monthly costs over this 20-year period of payback might be around $500 to the property owner. Meanwhile, that property owner could rent out this unit even at a low income affordable rent for $1,027 for a studio and right around $1,200 for a 1-bedroom. That means the property owner could achieve a monthly cash flow of $500 to $700. And so that could really benefit that homeowner wanting to supplement their income and with needs to pay extra expenses. As Celeste mentioned, what we're seeing is a lot of house rich, cash poor homeowners, particularly fixed income single seniors, who are struggling to maintain their home and pay outside expenses. So that added $500 to $700 could go a long way towards supplementing expenses. And then that adds up over time, that compounds, those benefits accumulate. We could see then from $6,000 to $8,000 of income benefit over a yearly period. And if we looked at that then over a 10-year period, we could see just that straight kind of payback from $60,000 to $85,000. And indeed, then that rental income could pay back the full expense of the simple low-end garage conversion. Well, and so with that, that's some kind of use value benefit aside from what may be accumulated on the sale of the property. But Eric, at SmartShare, we like to educate the community and policymakers not only on benefits, but potential costs of these ADUs. Are there some reasons why the homeowner may not want to build an ADU, or some ways that the cost may be higher than the benefits?
Yeah, I think in most cases, the benefits are going to outweigh the costs. But to talk about some of those potential downsides of an ADU, I do know from experience that, when you go to resell a home with an ADU, you could potentially shift the buyer pool or shrink the buyer pool. You may have people, especially for like a garage conversion, you may have a lot of people that out there looking that really just need a garage or really want a garage, or they think they need a garage. They have that mindset. And I think that is shifting. But I think right now we're still seeing a lot of buyers out there who want the garage for storage, a bonus room for cars, stuff like that.
It's perfect. I've got to note your background right here as we speak.
I know, right? My garage is used for multiple things as well. But
I think you have a little room in here that you could make.
Yeah. So there is that potential, but then of course you're going to be gaining buyers that you wouldn't have too with an ADU. You're going to gain people who want that passive income, or maybe have an elderly family member that they need to live with them, and having a separate independent unit is a huge benefit to them. The other thing that I think buyers will look at that could be a downside is privacy. So especially if you have an attached ADU or a garage conversion with shared wall, you will obviously have some impact to privacy between the two units. And then if you have a detached ADU in the backyard, you're potentially shrinking the amount of outdoor space for the primary home. And then you also have to figure out shared outdoor space and figure out the privacy of that. So I think there certainly are people out there who do not want an ADU on the property because they don't want to pay a premium for something they're not going to use, or they don't want, or that they'd simply use for an office or something like that. But like I said before, you're going to be gaining people to replace those buyers that want something like that or need something like that for their family needs or financially.
And I've recently read that architects say that roughly half of their clients request a second unit, an ADU or a junior ADU, to be designed into their new homes.
Mhm.
So I think that's showing an increase in people interested in this option.
And we're seeing that similarly in home building statistics of how many new home builders, right, are incorporating some kind of separate or separable unit for family members, as we see increased numbers of multi-generational families living together. And again, that's another topic, that kind of benefit to family flexibility, that we'll talk more about in some other videos. That's huge, that may not have an exact dollar payback.
And just on the storage question, we do note that a lot of people who convert garages put in a shed to take up the slack on the extra storage. It's relatively easy to do that.
It doesn't all go away.
No.
Yeah.
And I think that's to the point of the builders potentially designing some floor plan options that have an ADU above the garage. I know the South Morrow subdivision here in San Luis Obispo has a larger floor plan that includes an ADU above the garage with a independent staircase up to it. And to that point, I think it's important to talk about, our market being such a high, relatively high valued market compared to the United States as a whole. While it does create a lot of issues for affordable housing, which is why we're here talking about this, it does create this benefit for owners because their land value is high, and adding more living space or a second unit in our market is just so much more valuable somewhere else. And if you think about construction costs, yes, our construction costs in California are probably a little higher than other states, but compared to the amount of value you can add here and the income you can generate here, I think it's a huge benefit for owners to be in a market where they can add so much value.
Well, with that, I think we heard the general summary of how homeowners can appreciate the value, kind of the use value of the rental income over time, and the added value fairly dependably of up to around 125,000 or so when the house may be sold, but that there may be some kind of tapering off of value after that, which bolsters our case to really focus on lower end, kind of more affordable ADUs. And so with that, I'd like to thank Eric Berg Johansson, a planner and San Luis Obispo realtor, for joining us here today. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Anne.